Okay, then. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our April Fireside Chat for Asian Wonder Women. We are joined this month by Jing Yan, and she's going to share her story of moving from Singapore to the Bay Area with us. And let's dive into it. So, why don't you introduce yourself, where you're from, all the things. Tell us a bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Justin, and hi everyone. My name is Jing Yan, and yes, as what Justin mentioned, I just made the move from Singapore to the Bay Area or US since last year, April. So it's been 1 year, and
Congrats.
so thank you. I'm still alive and kicking. Yeah, and it's been 1 year, and yeah, I'm happy to share today on my thoughts on my experience of moving, as well as I think just to share a little bit about my experience of talking to people who have made a move as well through my podcast called This Is Home Truly, which I think we'll dive in a little bit to it as we go along the conversation. Yeah.
Great.
So
Great, great,
yeah,
great.
thank you, Justin. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So let's start with while you were in Singapore, were
Mhm.
you thinking about moving abroad for a long time, or what inspired you to move abroad?
So when I was in Singapore, I did ever had thoughts about living abroad, but not in the manner that I'm currently living abroad right now. I thought I was always going to be living abroad because I managed to find job or work opportunities in those
Hmm.
places around
Hmm.
that is overseas. And funny thing is, I never thought I would live in the United States or like
Hmm.
anywhere in North America. That was like never part of my list of countries to want to live abroad in.
It wasn't appealing for you, or like you just thought you would stay in Asia, or where did you imagine yourself?
No, I don't think it's not a issue of appeal. It was more of like I think from Singapore, like the US and North America is just too far away.
Okay.
Right. And I think there's one. And the second thing was because, like, I didn't, there was nothing very special I could say about North America when I was living in Singapore. There was like no great marketing about the beauty of North America. you know, like there was no great marketing of it. Like the only thing we knew was like, okay, I guess music, right? And
Hmm.
maybe fashion and movies, but like that's
Hmm.
about it. Like
Yeah, okay.
with like I don't know any like interesting like food or cuisine because I'm like a big
Mm,
foodie, right?
yeah.
The whole thing about like the four seasons thing, like a lot of country had four seasons. It
You're
wasn't
like,
like
you're not special.
yeah, and you are too far away. So I never thought like I would like end up like on this side of the earth, to be honest.
Okay. Okay.
My like interesting fact is that the countries that I thought I would end up in would be like United Kingdom or China, like specifically Shanghai because I've traveled there before, and then Tokyo because um, it's actually all three countries, three areas I've traveled to before, and I enjoyed like my time there when I was
Hmm.
traveling. And also I think it was because like for Japan, like for Tokyo, Japan, it was more because I really like the language
Mm.
and I was learning it. And so I was like, oh, it makes sense that I can speak English and Mandarin, and maybe I'll
I
be
was
able to
thinking about
speak
that. Yeah,
right, and
as
I'll
you
be able to
listed the
speak
countries, I was like, you
Japanese,
speak the languages in all these places, except for
right?
Japan, but now here
But
you
yeah,
are. You know
yeah,
Japanese.
I like no now it's like to the level of elementary school level. It's like
Okay.
it's good enough to get me like food and get me
Yeah.
to places, but it's not good enough to have like a meaningful conversation. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's
Okay.
so like um I was like thinking of those countries. I just never thought about like the US. Yeah. But when I
Okay.
was thinking about like those countries, it was more about like oh going there because like what would bring me there and I would live like this single amazing cosmopolitan life
Yeah. Yeah.
while working like really really hard. But yeah, but instead, right here I am living abroad, not because of work, but because of like personal reasons and like I mentioned earlier, I came with like no like work or a role that was I was already signed on to, so it was like literally come here and getting used to the life here, getting used to like the pace here, and
Hmm.
basically exploring what is my next steps of like in terms of career, in terms of what I want to do. So yeah, that was me. Like that was me
Yeah.
then, that was me now. And I guess in a way, I guess like the universe is fair. They let me live abroad, but not in the way that I want to, which I guess is a
Yeah.
lot of learning in that sense too. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting the way you phrase it. It reminds me of like when you make a wish with a genie, it's like you have to be very, very careful what you wish for. And so
Yeah.
you wanted to live abroad, but you didn't say I wanted to live abroad while or also securing a job before I moved there, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was like that was not that was yeah. I mean, given the choice, I would have wanted to do like, move abroad after securing a role. But it just never happened.
Hmm.
And there was other consideration for moving abroad as well. And I was like, you know what? Let's just go there and see how it goes.
Yeah, which I think
Right.
is really like brave and admirable. Like it's a big change and a big jump for you. You were saying like the other countries you had considered like the UK or Japan or China, you had visited beforehand. So had you visited the US before you moved?
Only when I was being faced with the possibility of having to move, that's when I started visiting. And it was like short visits, so just like 2 weeks at most. And
Hmm.
um, I guess those visits helped me in terms of visualizing on what life could possibly be like in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
It also to get me a little bit familiar on how like people interact here, what's the social interaction like, just by simple things like buying drinks at the Starbucks is very different from buying drinks at the Starbucks in Singapore. So I
Hmm.
kind of have to like learn like things like that. And those visits like really do give me a little glimpse of that. But I would say like no visits can truly prepare anyone for the move because a visit just simply means that I'm heading back to my comfort zone and support network of family and friends after, let's say, a 14-day visit, right?
Hmm.
But when you move, you're like literally, you're knowingly and purposefully and intentionally just kind of like putting aside the support network they have built, like, over like 10, 20 years
Hmm.
and like just going to a new place, right? Where you don't know
Yep.
one,
Yep.
essentially. You do not have your close group of girlfriends. Like I really appreciate my girlfriends back in Singapore. Like, when girls get together, we talk a lot and we kind of like solve problems together.
Yeah.
I miss
Female
that
friendships
here.
are so important.
So
Yeah.
important, yeah. And I miss like the comfort of like just heading down from like my house to like a hawker center in like
Hmm.
shorts and t-shirt. Like this would
Hmm.
never happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so I would say like no visit will truly get you ready for moving. But I do agree that if you have visited, it would give you like a little bit of like I would say like a prequel or like a
A little preview.
taster,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, of like what's gonna come. Yeah, I mean, talking about female friendships, I mean, I would say like that was like a big thing I had to navigate. And I even talked with Emily Fang, Asian Wonder Woman founder, up on like this episode that I had with her for my podcast called Will You Be My Friend? So you basically talk about how difficult it is, number one, to like make new friends, right? And
Hmm. Hmm.
how much more difficult it is to make new friends when you're in your 30s, right?
Yep. Yep.
Because at that point of time, or rather at this point of time, you're like, I know what I like, I know what I don't like, right? And so that automatically filters out like a large bunch of people,
Totally.
right? Right?
Totally.
Which is good. Which is good in the sense that you kind of protect your energy, you protect your boundaries, and protect the kind of community that you ultimately want to build around you. But at the
Hmm.
same time, it means that you have less of a pool of people that you can be friends with.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean that was like I mean my podcast episode on that really went down to it. But yeah, that was like a major thing for me when I moved that I have to navigate and something that you could never experience when you're visiting. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like when I think about when I moved abroad, I think I felt very similarly. And the things that are interesting the things that you like take for granted and you don't think about until you move abroad. I remember feeling so overwhelmed at the grocery store because I just needed basic necessities like shampoo, conditioner, bread, And like I went into the shampoo and conditioner aisle and I was like, I don't recognize any of the brands here. So how do I know which
Mhm.
one's good? Right? How do I know which is
Right.
like the one that everyone uses? And I
Yeah.
probably spent like 20 minutes in that aisle just staring at every bottle, trying to figure out, is this what I want or is this not what I want? On top of
Yeah.
that, for me, there was like a language barrier issue when I moved to Taiwan. I couldn't read yet. And so I was trying to figure out which one is shampoo and which one is conditioner, which one is body wash. And
Yes.
so there was like many little things to navigate. I'm sure like for you moving to the US, no language barrier, but like I'm sure you felt similarly like you just everything is foreign. Like everything is the same but different. So I was like even going to the post office to mail something, like I'm like I know how to do this with my eyes closed in Canada, but like in Taiwan, I have no idea how it works. Like you grab a number there, you wait for them to call you, you have to tell them, you have to provide certain things and just like
Oh,
completely different than how I would do it in Canada. And so you just have to like relearn everything all over again when you move to a new place. And
yeah.
so you had mentioned like ordering at Starbucks or like navigating friendships, but were there other things that you felt like you had to navigate through, like some other difficulties or any culture shock that you had experienced?
I think one of the biggest ones is, or rather, three things. I think three biggest culture shock I had was, I think what briefly mentioned earlier, which is, the convenience. So like
Mm.
here, you can really just head out in a t-shirt and shorts and slippers. Like that's not the thing you do. Because number one, the weather doesn't is not friendly towards
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And second of all, is like linked to my second thing, which is like safety of women. I think um, it's just like it's like 180, change or difference in safety for women. Like in Singapore, I could just walk out wearing whatever I want, right?
Mm,
And in the middle of the night, I could be out until 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And I'll just be walking on the street and I don't have to worry about like people trying to like mug me,
mm-hmm.
people trying to like attack me or
Mm-hmm.
catcall me, or like people trying to be like trying to like, get at me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like here is totally the opposite. Even on like broad daylight when I'm walking, I have to be careful of like crazy like druggies or like homeless people.
Mm,
Um, I mean, of course, they have their own issues, right? I get it, right? It's not nobody. I guess nobody wants to be a drug addict if they can help it. Nobody wants to be a homeless person if they can help it. But again, it's also like because there was so many like all these social issues for women to like walk through a street undisturbed is something that I have yet to have experienced here.
mm-hmm.
Like I'm always on my right now nowadays I'm just like always on alert if I'm walking on the street
Yeah.
and I'm carrying something, I'm carrying my purse, I'm like just really carrying my purse like close to me. I'm making sure that I'm not on my AirPods when I'm walking, right? Because in Singapore I was just in my AirPods all the time, every
Mm-hmm.
time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here it's just that, and I make sure that I dress like in a way that it doesn't attract attention, right? So it means like not wearing short skirts if I can help it, not wearing short shorts, right? Or like making sure if I'm wearing something a little bit shorter, I do have a jacket or a coat to kind of just cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think like also maybe don't head out late at night, like too late
Okay.
at night. I don't go out here, right? Whereas in Singapore, I don't think twice when people ask me to go out and have supper or have
Yeah, it's
like
just
go
nothing that
clubbing.
ever,
It's nothing.
never, you never thought about it, never crossed your
Yeah,
mind. Yeah, I
correct.
get that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the third thing is small talk. I guess North Americans' culture small talk is really different from like small talk in Singapore.
Hmm.
Um, it's not that we don't do small talk in Singapore, although most of the time we don't because we're super efficient. We just want to get our orders for coffee done and then we like right on to our next day and agenda of the day.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think it's like in terms of like the story structure and the pace of like the small talk is different. So like in the US, it's always like, how are you? How's this going? And you kind of like have this perfumery kind of like asking how's each other's day going. And then
Mm-hmm.
you go on, maybe if you know let's say the barista for like a little bit, you can ask him on like, oh, or ask her about, oh, I remember that you had this sort of art project going. How's it going? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like in Singapore, it's like, like the small talk only happens when you already know that person for a very long time, and then
Cool.
just go straight into like, oh, I remembered like the last time we talked about this, or like, oh, how is it, or like in the sense of how is it today, straight away they will just kind of be like, they wouldn't say things like, oh, it's good, they'll be like, oh, it's bad. Like just it's like, oh, it's bad, it's a bad day, and you'll be like, oh, why is it a bad day, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
kind of like do the whole like ding dong back and forth. But
Mm-hmm.
here it's like everyone's fine, everyone's good, and like if there's any issue or any conflict that they were having in their own lives, they kind of bring up only like a little bit of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of just move on to what's going on, like what exactly was the main purpose of the trend of the conversation, which is I want to order a coffee, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's something that I had to get used to, because for example, if people ask me how's my day going, I can't usually I can't really say like, oh, my day's not going well. I would be like, oh, my day's
I
going
could see that.
good. My day's going
Yeah,
good. Yeah. And like, just go on to, because
that's
it's just the
true.
way it is,
I
right?
think
People.
like
Hmm.
Canada, US is very similar in that way, where the like default answer would be, I'm good, how are you? Or just like, I'm fine, how are you? It's always, yeah, like positive. And
Yeah.
then if you're not doing fine, it's like, I've had better days, but how are you doing? You like move on very quickly, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is a very common like conditioned response for us that we're taught to do that. And
Yeah.
I think we tend to save anything deeper for, yeah, like our really close circle. We
Hmm.
wouldn't we wouldn't do that with small talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, so I think there's just three things that are really different. I would say, just to sum it up, is like, small talk, the way small talk is done, convenience, safety for women. Yeah, because I think convenience is also one thing that I never appreciated MRT or trains as much until I left
Mm.
Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, nowadays, I'm like, oh, I just wish, like, I wouldn't even get mad if the MRT comes like 15 minutes late. Like I am at this point whereby I truly appreciate like the public transport back in Singapore, where else here is like none usually, or not that reliable. Like, because
Yeah.
everyone drives, I get it, but
Yeah.
driving has its own set of problems, right? Traffic, aggressive
Parking.
drivers,
Yeah.
parking, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I miss like the convenience in transport. I miss
Mm.
the convenience of like being able to, have like a good affordable hawker center right around the corner all the
Mm-hmm.
time. But yeah, that's just essentially like the three things that I was shocked by.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
but now I just kind of like, I think how I deal with it was more like I had to remind myself like, for example, I'm no longer in Singapore, so
Mm.
obviously there's all these culture shocks, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if I think about it for issues like, safety for women, right? I have to remind myself maybe Singapore is the only place whereby women can like walk alone at 3 a.m. with nothing bad happening to them,
I
right?
don't think so. I don't think it's just Singapore.
You know, it's,
I would argue it's the same in Taiwan. It's like that in Korea. It's like that in
yeah,
probably Japan. Like there's quite a few, I would say, Asian countries where it's very, very safe. And
yeah,
so I personally, when traveling, feel comfortable in those areas. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's a good point, because I do have the same experience for Taiwan and Japan as well.
Mm.
Although Japan was interesting because I once stumbled into like this drinking alley for like salary men, and when they're all drunk, it's not that safe for women.
I
Yeah,
could see that.
so yeah,
Yeah.
correct. So I mean, yeah, I have to like kind of adjust my expectation of, okay, maybe it's not that maybe I'm being like, I'm having too high of a standard for like safety for women for internationally, right?
I mean,
Like,
I think you were definitely spoiled in Singapore for
yes,
safety, which
correct.
is like really unfortunate that that is even a thing we have to say. Like, I wish, obviously, all over the world women felt safe, but I think, yeah, for sure, Singapore is known as one of the
Yeah.
top places where you would feel safe. Yeah.
I think for that particular topic, of safety of women, I think one thing that was, I think why it was shocking to me was because like when I think about US, it was like you guys are so progressive, or like North America, you guys are so progressive in terms of like getting women like quality for women in terms of pay, or like in terms of like workplace,
Mm.
how you guys address workplace harassment, for example, for women.
Hmm.
And yet, when you guys have all that, which supposedly better for the betterment of women, like welfare, like to me, like basic road safety, like street safety is not really there. And so I can't, like, to me, it's like I had this concept of like you guys being like
Mm,
really for women, but like when I
mm-hmm.
came, it was like, oh, well, I guess that happens at workplace, but then outside of work, when on the street, maybe the women have to like kind of like look out for themselves a little bit more.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everything you said is true in terms of like those are the things we strive for. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily know that they've achieved their goals yet, right? They're still working on it. There's still a lot of
Yeah.
issues in terms
Yeah.
of like different pay wage gaps, and there's still a lot of issues in the workplace, I would say. But
Mm.
that's definitely something like they strive for. And but you're right, it's interesting, I guess, like the priorities are in different places, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um, but I think to your point also, how you were saying like you visited for 2 weeks, but that wouldn't have been enough for you
Yeah.
to see all of these culture shocks and all of these differences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so true. Like for me, I believe that when you move anywhere, it takes at least a year to feel settled and feel like you kind of have a handle on how things work in the city and how to navigate and feel comfortable and have like hopefully you've like formed a bit of a community. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's interesting, like now that you're at the 1 year mark,
Yeah.
what are some of those lessons you think you've learned?
That's a good question, Justin. I think what I've learned is that you just have to get used to the idea that you will be uncomfortable, at least in
Mm,
the beginning. Like,
I think that's fair.
yeah, because like I keep thinking I will get settled within 3 to 6 months.
Mm.
Didn't happen, and I got disappointed in myself for like letting that not happen. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think you just have to be like you just have to face the fact that you're gonna be uncomfortable for a little bit in the beginning, especially like loneliness, because you essentially kind of cutting yourself off, like you're not of network, right? That you're familiar with, and then moving on to another place that you obviously do not have as much of knots of network, right? um, Feelings of falling behind, because specifically for me, my case was because I moved without a job secured, right? So all my life I've been a workaholic. I've never like take long like gaps between work, like new roles, and so and then when I look at my friends back home, it's like, oh, they're like achieving another promotion, or they're
Hmm.
like moving on to another company,
Hmm.
and I had like, obviously I'm gonna compare, right? Because
Yeah,
everyone compares,
we're
right?
human.
Although,
Yeah.
yeah, we are human. So I do had like feelings of falling behind. Um, Thinking like, what if I've stayed and then I could have done so much more, right? In my that set role or set path, right? And so that was something that I struggled with and I had to face. And it was a lot of like introspective, as this reflection on what's what am I gonna do then, right? If I'm having all
Mm.
these feelings, what am I gonna do with them? How do I come around to overcome it in a very either more productive way or a more positive way, I would say. I think that's one. Second thing that I've learned was that you really had to make effort to like build your network of like friends or like good friends.
Hmm.
Um, it took me 1 year, but I can safely say now I have like 3 good friends. It's not a
Hey,
lot. It's not
that's
a,
impressive. No, that I
that's
think it's like we were saying, it's hard to make friends as
yeah,
adults. So like
yeah,
to have three people that you consider you're comfortable around and you feel good around, that's really good.
yeah, yeah. So like I was like, okay, at least I had 3 good friends. Not too bad, in the sense of that. And I can safely say like they're like people that like have my back, right? I mean, it's hard to even like find that, like, in a normal circumstance,
Yeah.
where you've been there for like your whole life. How many people can
Yeah.
you say that they have your back, right?
Yeah.
So that's that. But you have to make the effort. Like I had to really put myself out there. I had to like make plans to go into the city, for example, and join events, and meet with people for coffee, and really like invest that kind of time and effort and show the
Mm-hmm.
interest to make friends,
Mm-hmm.
or at least get to know new people, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
which is difficult. Like I mentioned earlier, like we mentioned earlier, like when you're in your 30s, sometimes all you want is just to stay home
Yeah.
and like do your own thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, and then I think the third thing is I think one of the this is not really a lesson I learned because I'm moving, but I think kind of emphasize how important it is to like finding things that you're grateful for, and finding ways that you to be useful on a regular basis, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
daily basis or not, because I think in whatever circumstances you're in, especially with moving, right, there's a lot of uncertainty. Finding things that you're grateful for every day, even small little things like, oh, there wasn't too much rain today, or I managed to make my coffee the way I like it today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So little things like that, when you're grateful for, you are able then to see beyond and maybe see something more positive and optimistic for like
Yeah.
something greater.
Yeah.
Finding ways to be useful was something that I only discovered when recently, was just recognizing the fact that even though, let's say, I don't have a job right now, maybe work is not my entire identity. I am useful in other ways, right? For example,
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to like have more time now to focus on my friends if they do want a listening ear on like what's going on at work or what's going on in their personal life. I'm like more availably. I'm more easily available to listen to them. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something
Mm-hmm.
that I think I see that as being useful. And I
Totally.
think that totally like helps, reaffirm with myself on like how I am as a person and what
Mm-hmm.
kind of qualities I bring to the table when I'm interacting with a friend. And I think that is just like the lesson I learned, right? Just finding things to be grateful for, little things to be, grateful for every day, and finding little ways where I can be useful to other people, um, on a regular basis. So yeah.
Yeah. I think we could like probably talk about that for an hour or two, just like talking about being grateful.
Yeah.
That's like a huge thing for me as well. Like I tried to do a gratitude journal for a year,
Oh.
and I think I wish I had thought about this when my most recent move was to Beijing at the end of 2024. I lived there for like a month and a half, and really struggled. And I think in that moment, I wish I had thought about continuing to practice in gratitude, because it would have helped me like pull myself out of the mindset that I was in, because I was really down when I was there.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a really, really important lesson to remember and keep in mind, whether you're moving or not. Like just
Yeah.
in life, it's
Yeah.
important to practice a bit of gratitude. But I actually, what you had mentioned in your lessons, I was thinking about was you were building community. I'm just curious if Asian Wonder Women played a big part of that or not.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah?
sure. So when I knew I had to move, I mean, all along I was interested, and I'm a big fan of Asian Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
I knew them, or I was connected with Asian Wonder Woman from like the time in Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was and still is a great group of ladies, and I even volunteered for like the event in Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just kind of like kept in contact with people there, and when I moved, like I just kind of like reach out, like I mean, obviously I knew Emily was like in the Bay Area, so I just reached out to her and said like, hey, is there anything you guys are having any events that I could be part
Mm-hmm.
of, I could
Mm-hmm.
help in. So and also the resources there, like for sure now I know there are some ladies out here in the East Bay, for example, that I could connect more with if I want to. I think that's one. So Asian Wonder Woman definitely was one of the community. It's a network that I rely a lot on, even until today. I think another one would be Singapore Connect, which is SGN, which is because I only know that there's such organization that is that exists when I wanted to move, and some of my friends was like, why don't you just sign up to be part of the database? Like at least you know
Mm-hmm.
like who are the Singaporeans in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, sure,
Mm-hmm.
let me do that. Like no harm,
Yeah.
right? And so that's another one because and then I also have my own friend who also did the move before I did. It was purely purely coincidental that we were moving
Mm.
to the same place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and for the same reason. I think I even interviewed him for one of my podcast episodes. I think it was the second episode. Was it the third one? Okay, I forgot which episode it was at, but we talk about things like, you know, similar things about moving and like how what does being Singaporean mean to you essentially when you move. And I think that like remain connected to friends like that, like it's also like something that helped me a lot in my transition. Yeah, I mean sometimes you have the ugly side of transitioning and you need like people like that to like talk with you, to talk it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in terms of professional aspirations wise, I would say Luma was really good in terms of getting me that kind of like access into events here in the Bay
Oh,
Area. Yeah, so
okay.
like a lot of startup events and things like that. I think Luma, if you play around with like Luma for San Francisco area, I think you will see a lot of events happening. Some of them are for free, which is the ones that I usually go for.
Yeah.
Yeah, to just get a sense of how the startup culture is here. What kind of people work here as well. I think that's something that was very useful for me. Still is. I mean, I still sign up for events through there and go out and meet people. As hard as it is, because
Yeah.
I really hate going out sometimes. Like, yeah, especially when the weather is like cold, you're just like, I don't want to get out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, and I think LinkedIn is another good resource in terms of professional. If you're thinking about doing the career switch or you're thinking about like finding a career here in the US, I used it not to like just get referrals or whatever, but it's just more of like because I was just exploring my own career development, kind of like post management consulting, and I basically went and talked to a bunch of people who were like who were management consultants, and then turned like in-house strategy planning or in-house like roles that like I thought like it would never like be one of the roles for a post management consultant candidate. And so I had like some pretty good conversation with those people, and it really opened up my mind to like what's possible as well, like what kind of possible career routes I could actually consider. It also forced me to do a professional career audit of myself, like what I've done so far, was it like the best decision, and what do I want to do in my next role, what kind of things do I want to continue doing? What kind of things do I want to stop continuing doing? I think that was that was something that I think LinkedIn helped a lot in that sense. Yeah, I think so. In terms of resources and networks and communities, I would say like just for me, I tend to, as much as I say like it's hard to make friends, like my kind of like tendency is to try and connect with people who are like me or who have made similar life decision as me and connecting with them. And that's how like I think about getting the resources and networks and communities to help me with my transition. I think at the end of the day, when I went to all these events and all these like communities, it started me thinking about how about I creating my own community, which is why How This Is Home truly the podcast came about. Because I was like, I'm meeting all these interesting people, but I want to curate it for my own POV in that sense, right? From my
Yeah.
perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so I created my podcast mostly because of that. And secondly, because like I can't, it's kind of corny. I just see it as part of my love letter back home because I mean, you don't tell your friends back home like all the things. Sometimes, you kind of just like get them up to speed on certain important things. But like when you talk
Yeah.
to
Like
other
high
people,
level highlights. You don't
yeah,
like dig
correct. You
into
don't
all the
go,
nitty
yeah,
gritty.
correct. Especially for like friends who are like, back home, right? Because of the time difference and stuff. So the podcast actually allows me to explore the nitty gritty, but in a more interesting manner when I'm talking to another person as my guest. So yeah, that was how the podcast came about, and also because I always wanted to do a podcast. I just never.
Oh, I think you muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I didn't hit up. See, so yeah.
That's
So
okay. That's okay.
no. So I think that's how like like I came about doing the podcast, but also because like I've always wanted to do a podcast. It's just that I never had the time in Singapore. In Singapore, everyone's so busy. I don't know what we're busy about, to be honest, but we're always busy.
I mean, I think being an adult is busy. I remember seeing like a reel like years ago, but they were saying like to be a productive adult today, you need to get 8 hours of sleep. You need to drink 8 glasses of water. You have to work out 2 hours a day. You have to go for your hot girl walk. You have to journal for an hour. You have to eat a
Yeah.
nutritious breakfast. You have to do like XYZ number of things. And
Yeah.
suddenly it's like, how do you have time to work? Like, how do you have time for anything if you want to like take care of yourself and
Yeah.
have good mental health and good like overall health?
Yeah.
Like there's just not enough time in the day to do all of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that I'm exploring and I'm trying to build my own community, or like surround myself with people that I really, really, want to be, spending time with, to know them. The podcast was really like part of that kind of desire. It was born out part of that desire. Yeah.
I think we've talked a lot about the
Mm.
podcast, but I don't think we know like what is the
The
podcast. Do you know what I
podcast.
mean?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
since we're on it, just tell us
Let
about
me.
it.
Okay. Based on what I wrote for my Instagram, which I think was like the most easy way to explain to people, This Is Home truly essentially is a podcast about how it's about sharing my thoughts on the experience of moving, but often with a guest, because I believe that having a guest or having someone else in a conversation gives like different perspective for myself, and that's always interesting and adds value to the listener. um, that's essentially what it is, the podcast it is. But we explore topics like concepts of home, concepts of like retaining the essence of home even when you're away from home, your own identity, as for example, my own identity as a Singaporean, even as I move away. Um, and we explore interesting things like in the sense of home adjacent topics like third culture kids.
Hmm.
So we talk about food because you can't be talking to a Singaporean without talking about food. Miss the food. Like the food is, oh yeah, the food is one of the like biggest thing I missed. But that was something that I had to think about. Oh, how do I'm at that stage where I'm thinking about how to even cook like our
Yeah.
Singaporean cuisine, because like
Yeah.
you just can't get that easily out here.
Hmm.
I mean, if you live in the city, you can definitely get it. Shout out to Dabao Singapore in the city in San Francisco. But yeah, it's just we just talk about food, talk about art, talk about music that reminds us of home. That reminds us, and I'm going to talk to someone else about third culture kids. So because I realized that there's a lot of people who are like me, who moved and maybe they have kids sometime later, in future, what are those kids going to grow up thinking,
Hmm.
right? About
Hmm.
what's culture for them, what's home for them, what's their heritage. So I'm going to talk to someone about it because I don't have that experience and neither does my husband. But, it'll be interesting to talk about things like language. How do you retain that language, like your mother tongue, even as you grew up in a primarily English speaking environment.
Hmm.
So things like that like will be
Okay.
discussed in the podcast. Yeah, so that's what it is about.
So it
um
doesn't mean you're necessarily only talking to people who are
was
Singaporean.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no. Wait, for example, I spoke to someone, basically I spoke to Emily before, on like her experience, for example, in building community, because she
Mm.
has done so well in it. And she has lived abroad as well, like both
Yep.
in Singapore and I think in Beijing, if I'm not wrong.
Hmm.
And so like it was interesting to hear from her perspective, right, of like doing the opposite of the move,
Yeah.
right? And that was very interesting because I just I never thought that people in this in North America who want to move to Asia, although I am seeing more and more of those people
Hmm.
like yourself. And
Guilty.
yeah, and it's interesting to hear that perspective from you guys, because I think all the time, like from Asia, we always think the West is the best sometimes.
I think that's a very common like message weaved throughout the
Yeah,
world. Yeah.
yeah. And when you hear people who are doing the opposite migration of like from West to Asia, it obviously it forces us to reflect on whether West is indeed the best. That's one, but it also allows us to like really look into like the Asia side of culture and be like, oh, is this, maybe we have something to offer to the world that we thought was not worth offering, right?
Totally.
Yeah, and I think that's something that really was interesting when I was
Mhm.
speaking with Emily about her experience. Um, And yeah, I think that's what I've been busy with.
Yeah, okay. I think it's
Yeah.
also like you always want what you don't have, right? Or
Oh,
you're
that's
always
true.
there's like
Yeah.
a curiosity around how different the two cultures are. And so I think it makes sense for people to be,
Hmm.
essentially like doing the opposite or swapping places.
Yeah.
Because I think the same happens in Canada too, like coast to
Oh,
coast. We have people from Toronto and people from Vancouver who like move to those other cities and they kind
uh-huh.
of swap places. And people from Toronto who move to Vancouver, like myself, are like, oh my God, I love Vancouver. Like it's so much nature here. It's so different from Toronto. It's amazing. And then people from Vancouver will move to Toronto. They're like, oh my gosh, the city's like alive and there's like culture and there's like so much to do and there's so many job opportunities and just like it's just different. It's just different. And so people, I think, are looking for something different often. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I didn't think that it could happen within a country. But then of course
Mm.
I grew up in a country that's really, 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 really small. So it doesn't matter where we were moving to, like, which part of
Yes.
Singapore. We're just all on
Yeah.
the island.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Canada has 6 time zones, so there's a lot to choose from.
You guys are 6 times. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Um, and so, okay, let's bring it back a little bit. I know you mentioned you miss the food in Singapore,
Yeah.
which I think I'll pick your brain afterwards because I'm heading to Singapore. If for those who are watching today, it's nice and early to be promoting it, but May 2nd and 3rd is the Asian Wonder Women Summit coming up in Singapore for 2025, and I will be attending. I will be hosting a panel discussion. I'm very excited. I haven't been to Singapore in so many years. And so I'm mostly excited about the food, but also excited about the summit.
You
So
got your priorities right. Food
yes,
first.
yes. So I will be asking you later about food recommendations, but while
Sure.
we're on the topic of Singapore, I'd be curious to know, as much as you're like trying your best to focus on being present and like being in the transition of being in the US, you must still feel like there are things you miss from Singapore. And I'm just curious, what are the things you miss?
Yeah, food is one because I, it's in two like aspects, like quality of food for like the
Mm,
price point.
okay.
Because like I'm just and also the availability of food all the time in Singapore.
Mm,
Like
mm-hmm.
I realize here, if I want to get to somewhere that's like an hour drive, or like a 1.5 hour drive, I'll be like, oh, let me pack some snacks because I'm not gonna find any snack
Ah,
stands or
mm-hmm.
stores around. Whereas in
Yeah.
Singapore, it's like you will never get hungry because you just need to walk like 10 steps and there's another food stall,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whether it's in a mall or is it in a train station or whether it's like just, like anywhere that you're going,
Mm-hmm.
there's always food. Like you'll never be like, oh, will I get hungry later on when I'm traveling from?
Yeah, you don't need to
Uh,
plan ahead like where
yeah,
there's no food scarcity, right? Like it's
yeah,
abundant.
exactly.
It's very abundant.
It's very abundant. Like you don't have to think about should I like pack like a 3 drinks in my car? Because like
Mm,
guess what? If you feel like you can have boba milk tea when you're on the way to get to the train. After you get up from the train, you could then, if you're still feeling thirsty, you can get like an ice blended fruit drink or fruit tea, like and like or like after dinner you feel like getting sugarcane juice. Oh, there's one there. Like that's you don't have to worry about like not getting
hmm
enough drinks or getting the drinks that you want, right?
hmm
So I think like in terms, I really miss the food in terms of like the quality for the price point and also the availability of it. Like
hmm
I get it any time of the day, doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It'll be like
Yep.
3 a.m. I can get dim sum, right?
hmm hmm
So I think that's one thing I really miss about Singapore. I think the second thing is like the weather. Like I know I complain like a shit ton about Singapore's weather when I'm in Singapore. I'm always complaining, oh, it's so hot, it's so humid. It suddenly like rains. I hate it.
hmm
It makes my shoes wet. But like here, I'm like, I miss like the thunderstorm. I miss the fact that like you can have thunderstorm from like 3 to 4 p.m. and then it's like freaking like shining and sunny after that.
hmm
So yeah, I miss the weather in that sense. I think the thing I miss obviously is my family and friends.
hmm
But I mean, we're talking about Singapore itself. What I really really miss is, I would say, yeah, convenience is back to convenience. Like literally, like, and
Yeah.
where am I gonna like? I could go to anywhere in Singapore right now. We have more train lines, by the way. You should like explore that, like new train lines. So literally, you can get to anywhere in Singapore using like public transport. You don't have to like spend on like Grab or like which is our version of Uber. You don't have to spend on Uber. You don't have to know how to drive. You could just hop onto a train and then to a bus and then back to a train again, and it's like all accessible. So I miss that here because buses are unreliable. Come to realize.
Totally. Yeah.
Trains come, but at a frequency of every 20 minutes to 30 minutes. If you miss one, too bad. Just gotta wait. Yeah. So I mean, that's the three things I miss. Yeah, mostly food, weather, convenience.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's I think you like it's change. Like when I boil it down, when we boil down like what's the root of it, it is change, and it is just like acclimating to a whole new environment, right? So that's totally fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
While we're here, we do have some people on the call with us, and I just want to open up the floor to any Q&A if anyone has any questions. If you do, you're welcome to just like unmute your mic and you can just ask your question, or if you would prefer, you can also throw it in the chat. That's also no problem. But I just wanted to give the option because we have Jing Yan here who can speak to her move. And so if anyone would like to ask questions, this is your opportunity. And I see, okay, yeah, I think both of you are interested. Okay, Cheryl, I see your hand raised. Let's hear from Cheryl first.
Yeah.
Hi, both of you.
Hi.
Hi, Cheryl.
Yeah, thank you for hosting this. It's definitely been really interesting, and I'm.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, Jing Yan, welcome back.
Sorry, it just
That's okay.
That's on me. I
That's
missed
okay.
Cheryl's question.
I'm just gonna quickly address Calissa because she's gonna jump off the call in like 2 minutes, I think. She was just asking, how did you find like job opportunities and workspaces that were willing to sponsor visas?
Okay, so I think there are some job sites that can allow sponsoring of visa, but I mean there were some that I saw, but I would say right now the climate is not very conducive for people seeking H-1B visa. I'm not a immigration lawyer, so I can't really give you very good advice on how to the different types of visa that's available. But I would actually encourage you, Kalisa, to explore different types of visa that you could possibly get, and not just kind of just aiming for one, which is, I think for Singaporeans we have something called H1B1, which technically has kind of like a the the quota is enough for people who want to move from Singapore to US. I think it's just that I think generally employers nowadays are quite hesitant if or rather they're very like they're very careful when it comes to promising availability of visas or like ability to sponsor you a visa. I would say though, if you are in a career path or career area where you are like high in demand, in the sense of, let's say, AI engineering, then I would say it might be slightly easier for you to get a company who is willing to sponsor a visa. But again, I would say seek out. You can see. I think there are some websites that you can, and they are just job boards that list down or accumulate jobs that are sponsoring visas. But I would also encourage you to explore other types of visa available, whether it's talking to an immigration lawyer or talking to someone who, are familiar with the visa options. Unfortunately, I'm not that person who can advise on visa. Yeah. I hope that answered your question, Kalisa.
Yeah, she said thanks for sharing. And then Cheryl, do you want to jump in with your question?
Yeah. Just give me a sec to think about it because I feel like you probably already addressed this question.
Oh,
but I
okay.
just missed it.
That's okay. Calissa was saying in the chat that she's still trying to find other openings.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I think everyone's having a hard time.
I guess
Yeah.
my question is like, what was your biggest hurdle when you moved to the States that was kind of like unexpected?
Biggest hurdle. Mm, I think it's the fact that I'll say it's two things then. First is the fact that like I'm not working as how I used to work, which is, jump into the new role straight away and just, work and grind. The fact that I had to slow down my pace of life and thought process. Like even if I don't say about, not in a work environment or work context, people here like I guess more they kind of like don't rush through things in general. They kind of like take things, even if it's a problem, they look at it properly and then they structure it out and then they come back with with an answer or come back with a solution that is, it takes longer for them to come back, but they do come back with a good solution. Whereas I'm very used to like the Asian work hustle kind of culture where it's like, oh, the faster you come back, the better it is. It doesn't work that way here, apparently. They don't appreciate like fast responses. They are like essentially not solving the problem. So I think that's something that I wasn't expecting because I always thought like if you're fast, if you are quick in terms of your response, people will look upon you very favorably. But that's not the case, I think, here, which is very interesting. I mean, it definitely shows me that there are other ways of getting things done, responding to someone, I would say. Yeah. I think that's one. I think the second thing I didn't expect it to be much of an obstacle was I didn't expect being sick in winter to be a big problem. Like I thought it's just gonna be like, oh, my usual. I just need to do my usual routine of dealing with a flu, and I'll be fine. My usual routine did not work because of the fact that it was also really cold during the winter months. Days were shorter. I did not expect to have seasonal depression. Essentially, like I didn't expect like the fact that the days were shorter to affect me like in a more emotional sense, but it did. Like I was super like, why is the sun setting at 4:30 p.m.? Like this is not right, right? And so that was like something that I hope that I will be able to overcome in the next coming winter months. I mean, we're only in spring, slash going to summer, but I'm hoping by the next time winter comes around and I get sick, I will not be feeling so terrible. And I will have like a better way of like dealing with like seasonal depression. Yeah.
Thank you. That was really insightful.
Thank you, Cheryl, for your question.
Jing Yan, I'm curious. I know we're over time a little bit today just because we started a little bit later. We had some technical issues with this platform today. So I'm just gonna take like 2 more minutes of everyone's time. Feel free to jump off if you gotta go, so don't worry about it. But I'm just curious. We didn't talk about this beforehand, so if you don't want to talk about it, feel free to let me know. But I'm curious, how is the job hunt going today?
It's going. Still proceed. It's still going. But I think I mean it's just a tough market right now. Like I think in general, it doesn't matter what kind of skill set you have or like how long you have been, having a work experience back in Asia. But I think what I learned so far from the job hunt is the fact that in the US or at least in North America, I think like I have to really sell myself, which is something that I'm not very used to. Because in Asia, usually, oftentimes, you just like if you do good work and you have a good reputation, it supersedes you and it helps you, to get a job, right? It helps you to stand out easily. But I think here is a lot more. It's not just about doing a good job. It's about communicating the nuances of you doing the good job and what does it mean, right? And communicating that across effectively to someone who essentially don't know you. They don't
Kind
know
of
who
like
you come
you
from.
have to be like really good at selling yourself.
Correct, correct. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that is very foreign to like it's very contradictory to what I'm being taught when I was growing up. Like
Totally. Like don't
yeah,
brag, like
yeah,
be
don't brag.
humble. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's the biggest, I guess, like takeaway I have so far for the ongoing job hunt. Like you got to really, really be able to sell yourself, but don't do it in an obnoxious way because sometimes you can overdo it. So I had to like find that balance too, which I think I'm getting there. I'm not 100%,
Yeah.
right? But it does really like bring me out there in terms of like learning. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. Like, I wish you the best of luck as you continue your search, right?
Thank you.
There are a lot of factors that impact the job search, right? It's not always like you can't take it personally, right? It's quite difficult. But I wish you the best of luck. I'm gonna wrap up for today. Thank you so much for sitting down with me, and for those who joined today for the call, thank you for tuning in and listening. Before we fully wrap up, I'm just gonna one more time mention, because it is important. I'm so excited. If you are in Singapore or you are able to make your way to Singapore for the beginning of May, May 2nd and May 3rd will be the Asian Wonder Women Redefine Summit. And we are so excited to be putting that on. So we're excited to see you if you are able to make it. And so we'd love to see you there. So thank you again, Jing Yan. And thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next month.
Yay,
Thank you.
bye. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.